Don't click on it, 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 don't click on it.
A few moments later.
Yeah, I couldn't help myself. You know what they say, never trust an ex to say good things about you. Normally, this is how ex-Muslims talk about Islam. This was honestly a very painfully, agonizingly huge waste of time. But don't worry, I've watched it so you don't have to. In order to make this more interactive, let's imagine I was also sitting in this group answering questions. So let me make some space for myself right here. Ah, that's it. Now, we got an all-star team of ex-Muslims over here on the right. Let's introduce them one by one. Starting off is superstar number 1. Strong, independent, feminist woman who don't need no man.
The azan, the call to prayer. All the boys in my class, they're like, we're going to do the call to prayer for this Friday. I'm ineligible because I'm a woman, apparently. Can't do the azan. I can't do the call to prayer.
Someone play the violin, please. Why do you care about giving the call to prayer? Is it just because men do it and women don't? If I wanted to cry about inequality in Islam the way you are, then let me give you far greater examples. Men cannot wear gold. Men cannot wear silk. The highest status any human being can achieve today is the status of a mother. I'm sure you know of the well-known hadiths. The father can toil the fields, stay overnights at the office, go to war for his family, and will still never be equal to the mother. You don't see men crying about forever being in second place. You don't see men saying, this is unfair. Why can't I be a mother? Why can't I fulfill those purposes?
Why can't I fulfill those other purposes?
Are you serious?
And here we transition to superstar number 2, the brown knight in shining armor, the Dayuth himself. He pretty much discards gender roles as a whole.
There's nothing for me there. When you say that I was created for a specific purpose and a woman was created for a specific purpose, I would disagree completely. Why can't I fulfill those other purposes? When you start slowly building upon these layers of like roles, that prescriptive roles, that starts to create a system of oppression.
The femininity coming out of him is so high, the Muslim brother is forced to lower his gaze.
Mashallah, brother!
Why do you have to cover your head with a khimar and I don't, right? If I expect a man and a woman to lift a heavy load, but the same load, that would be unequal, right? What is equal in the eyes of Allah for a man is not going to be the same treatment for a woman.
What is this, man? We back in the 7th century now? This is the 21st century, man. Men and women deserve the exact same treatment. I can't believe you even said that. You know what? Dayuth, take it away, man.
Then there has to be difference in expectations and roles.
Maybe historically, but we live in a time where a lot of what you're saying just isn't relevant.
Yeah! You show him, man. No special treatment for anyone in the 21st century.
So
I'm not going to be found in a situation.
Thank you. I would love to wrap this up, and I would love it if the women would wrap it up.
Hey, Jubilee! How are you gonna do my boy dirty like that? He's been battling so hard to be a feminist ally for hours. He said all the things feminists want. He's been getting triggered more than any woman on this panel. Except superstar number 1, of course.
I can impregnate all of them and we'll all know who the father is and who the mother is. If you have 4 husbands, we won't actually know who the father is. And also,
why is that important? Why would that happen?
He even threw in the good old virtue signaling when he had no argument.
If they both consenting and they both have love for each other, just like 2 males who don't know each other have love for each other.
Our boy over here's been saying women don't need special treatment. And you just play the feminist overlord and decide to forcefully pause the men so the women could speak? Why the special treatment? Can women not voice their own opinions? Were the loud men too intimidating for the women that you had to artificially mute the men? Moving on to superstar number 3.
I'm queer, my sister's queer, my mother and her sisters, all 3 of them turned out to be queer.
Moving on to superstar number 4. I really think this guy believes that in some previous life of his, he was one of those girls in the Ottoman harem. Because almost every time he said anything, he just kept relating it to slavery.
Men were allowed to have sex with slave women. They were being sexualized. I think that Islam has no moral standing to say that 2 consenting queer adults can't be in love while allowing a man to have sexual relationships with his slave.
I will say that this guy actually seemed to not have any ego complex, unlike the rest of his all-star team. This video is already getting long, so anyone interested in the slavery question in Islam, here are a few resources you can actually go to, which I will link in the description as well. You got this video by Imam Tom. You have a response from 2 of the Muslim panelists in this podcast right here. Apparently they gave this response in this show as well, but Jubilee didn't include it. They mentioned it in their podcast that superstar number 4 even texted them the day Jubilee released a video, saying he couldn't believe they cut their whole response off. Lastly, your boy himself talks about this in this video right here with sources. With that settled, let's not forget to give a bonus shout out to superstar number 5. She played for Team Muslim, and if this were a football game, she definitely scored the most goals. They just happen to all be own goals.
And you're comparing incest and homosexuality.
Please explain the difference.
I'm not gonna lie, that's really offensive. Can I say something?
They love each other.
Can I say something?
Yes.
That's as wrong as a brother and a sister consenting and having sex.
Exactly.
I agree.
So what's the problem with that?
What do you mean?
I just want to say, you just did this thing in public speaking called minimizing an issue, and then you're trying to find this correlation that simply does not exist. You're interrupting everyone too. So it's really offensive for you to make these arguments when you are constantly interrupting.
Why are you the way that you are?
Look, I'm not going to say all ex-Muslims are the same because they're clearly not, but some of them seem to have this massive ego complex. They seem to think Muslims are all brainwashed and they have somehow seen the light because they're open-minded, critical thinkers. What? You think there aren't ex-Muslims like that? Here, let's ask. Hey, how many of you think Muslims can think for themselves?
Because you're either implying that these women can't think for themselves and that they're just wearing this hijab because
That's not what I mean at all.
Good! So hijabis can think for themselves. Muslim women aren't brainwashed.
So my really devout Muslim friends, it feels like brainwash.
Did I mention she's very scientific?
I'm just a really scientific person.
Well, that's good to hear. Hopefully you don't end up contradicting yourself in the next clip.
There's new STDs that are resulting from this type of intercourse that's happening, and it's found a lot more.
You give me an example of
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
so a very recent scientifically proven one was Monkey Pox. That the overwhelming literature.
That was literally, you were saying, you were projecting a stereotype. It literally became a stereotype against gay men.
How is scientific literature a stereotype?
It was what are you
so the
sourcing here? Because you have clearly believed all of the Google articles about how it was only attributed to the gay community. That's my opinion. That's it. Monkey Pox was ridiculous. I'm just a really scientific person.
The ex-Muslims had a problem with the concept of submitting to God. Shocker.
Do something, even if we don't understand the wisdom behind it, it's the fact that we know that he's the most knowledgeable, so we trust in the fact that whatever he's telling us to do or not to do, that is the best thing for us.
Blind faith.
Blind loyalty.
Well, yeah, I'd prefer to have blind loyalty to the most wise, all-knowing creator of the universe over blind loyalty to Western liberal new atheism that you seem to be following. It's funny how, just like the rest of American kids leaving religion, they all get socialized into becoming agnostics or new atheists, which is the popular narrative in academia as well as the media. You never really hear the free-thinking ex-Muslims question clear flaws in the nihilistic liberal Western society, as you saw earlier in their denial of scientific facts. I don't really know of too many ex-Muslims who became Christian.
No! God, please, no! No!
Brothers!
Look, come here. Let me talk to you over here. Come here.
There were honestly two moments where I felt certain things could have been answered a bit differently.
So you mentioned that, for example, why can you not marry 4 husbands and why can I marry 4 wives, right?
So there's many ways this can be answered. Personally, the route the brother decided to answer this would not be my first choice for an audience like this.
If I have 4 wives, right, I can impregnate all of them and we'll all know who the father is and who the mother is. If you, for example, in this scenario, you have 4 husbands, we won't actually know who the father is.
Look, you have to know your audience. The audience here are ex-Muslims or liberal nihilistic secularists. They'll just say we can get DNA evidence and figure out who the father is in the 21st century, so this is outdated. Also, out of all the wisdoms you can get out of pure Islamic polygamy, you have reduced this concept to we need to know who the father is. And quite frankly, you've opened yourself up to the firing line, which these ex-Muslims then take advantage of and boost their ego with.
And also,
why is that important? Why would that happen?
And how does that make men and women equal in the eyes of Allah? Like, that's what that's telling you.
So I'm saying we're equal, but we're different.
There's no knowing of the
and
father
that's just
there.
reducing women to the sole purpose of reproduction.
Now look, I'm not saying the point you brought up was wrong. I'm just saying that's not the strongest point there is, and it won't put them on the back foot. Here's what I would say. The practice of Islamic polygamy will solve the inherent problems of society that the current Western dating culture is incapable of addressing. Current Western free-for-all dating is causing a drop in the stable family unit, which harms the financial and emotional future of children who grow up in single-parent or unmarried couples' households. It also causes the epidemic of fatherlessness and single motherhood. Islamic polygamy is the solution to stabilizing the family unit, as well as combating fatherlessness and single motherhood. What's the liberal solution for a single mother raising a child? She either remains partnerless her whole life, remaining financially struggling and lonely, or she dates again, hopes everything works out, and hopes the second guy doesn't bail on her either. The guy doesn't want to commit to marriage because it's too risky for him. If they get divorced, which is very likely in this society, he loses half his wealth and ends up paying alimony and childcare. And that is a happy scenario if she doesn't throw any charges on him. It's far more better to allow these single mothers to enter into second marriages where her and her kids will be financially and emotionally taken care of. The man will actually have to be responsible for the woman and her family, rather than having a side relationship and bouncing once he finds someone new, as it currently stands in Western dating culture. Allowing women to have 4 husbands will solve absolutely nothing. In fact, it'll just throw whatever is left of the family unit out the door. What's the woman gonna do if 2 of her husbands begin beating the heck out of each other? See, brothers, you give them an answer like that, and you'll see their worldview shatter the way it did when you brought up incest. You gotta turn the tables over to give them an ego check.
Don't be punching bags for people that come and practice on you. Learn to defend yourself and turn the tables. And with nothing, you don't have to use the Quran. Don't take the Quran. It's too holy. Let it lie on the shelf on the top. It's too sacred to bring into the battle. Use his own book.
The second thing I'd comment on,
I believe you mentioned you not being able to make the call to prayer. Once again, that's in order to protect the woman, just because men can also be attracted to the voice of a woman.
Again, this would not be the first thing I would use. Here's why. A Westerner will hear this answer and think of the following. We have female singers in the millions, and they seem to be safe here. Heck, we got choir girls in church and nobody goes and harms them just by hearing their voice. Are Muslim men so backward, so uncivilized, so savage that they can't control their urges even when hearing the voice of a woman?
Muslim men are disgusting, sorry.
This cannot be further away from the truth, of course. I mean, specifically Muslim men living in America. We hear all the same female singers and see all the same women in public, but you don't see us uncontrollably running after them. In fact, I'll argue our infidelity rate is far lower than the average Americans. If I were answering, I'd stick to the facts. We know the prompt is, women and men are equal in the eyes of Allah. By the way, we know it's normally always men and women, but these feminists couldn't digest that, so they had to change the order up with women and men. Anyway, we know Allah views men and women equally. And I know you brought this up earlier, but sometimes you can deliver a great point and it falls on deaf ears. So I'd repeat that again when she's whining about not being able to give azan. Allah already guarantees you ultimate equality in your deeds. So why are you demeaning your status by trying to weigh yourselves with the standards of men? Look, you don't listen to the Creator, but why don't you listen to your secular agnostic scientist over here? When it comes to hijab or the voice of a woman, we have community standards given to us by our religion that we uphold. It's not that if a woman comes singing into the masjid, all the men will become wild animals. It's just that we have values based off of objective morality given to us by an all-wise Creator. We don't have subjective moral values determined by people like this.
I'm just a really scientific person.
In Islam, it is not the role or the expectation of women to give the azan. Doesn't mean they're valued any less in society, and definitely not in the eyes of Allah. See, brothers, you gotta turn the tables over and not make them think they're in the commanding position. Look, I know it's real easy for me sitting here comfortably pausing the murtads whenever I feel like and dissecting their arguments. Who knows what I actually would have done had I been in your situation? And quite frankly, maybe you already said all these things and Jubilee edited it however they wanted. So, a huge round of applause for our two brothers here. No, hey, cut that out. No, not that one. Come on. Give them a real round of applause. Please like, share, and subscribe.